So somebody who has had success with their own podcast would probably tell you to first start a podcast to grow your audience, to even build your audience, right? So what do? You're like, okay, I'm going to start a podcast. So the first thing you do is you go and look for podcasting groups on Facebook and you join a bunch of different groups and then you start your journey. Okay, how do I start a podcast? What kind of gear should I buy? Should I buy a condenser mic or a dynamic mic? Should I buy a lapel mic or a boom mic? So once you figure that out, the next question is, okay, where do I host my podcast? Should I host it on my own website? Or should I use something like Libsyn or Blueberry or Spreaker or Podbean? And somebody tells you, hey, Anchor.fm is free. And you're like, oh, I want to use Anchor.fm. And then you see a bunch of people saying, do not host with Anchor.fm. And then you'll say, okay, I'll host it on my own website. And then you'll find 20 other people saying, do not host with your own website. And then you're constantly confused. Then next thing, okay, what recording software do I use? And remember, these are all questions. It's similar to asking, what's your favorite TV show or your favorite movie on Twitter? You will get a whole bunch of answers. There's really not too many wrong answers. It's just people's preferences, right? So same way, what recording software? Somebody will say, depending on whether you're using Mac or PC, you'll get a bunch of different recommendations. Then there's free software like Audacity. And some people use a mobile device. And some people use web software. They'll use Skype. So how do you use Skype? How do I do recording of guests? What if I have more than one guest? And what if it's a solo show? Do I need a fancy mic? What about XLR cables? What about USB mics? And then you're like, okay, the next thing, this is one of the biggest places where a lot of people will get stuck, editing. Now you suddenly realize that starting a podcast is not like starting a blog. You can write your article in bits and pieces, but you cannot record your podcast in bits and pieces. So you end up realizing that you have to edit this thing. If you just run it without any editing, there'll be a lot of mistakes and breathing noise and people talking over each other. It's going to be a huge mess. So you need editing. So next thing is, okay, what editing software do I use? And that's a whole another journey. And you quickly realize that hiring an editor could mean $20 to $50 or sometimes even $100 per episode, which means now you're trying to wing all of these things with free software and free hosting with your own hosting account, web hosting, which is not a good idea. So don't do it. So you start realizing that there are a lot more costs than what meets the eye. So next thing is finally you get to distribution. I'm like, okay, where do I go to submit to Apple? What about Spotify? What about iHeartRadio? So you start figuring that out. You finally end up distributing everywhere. You add it to a bunch of directories. Now you're ready to launch, and you launch with maybe one episode, which is the right way to do it. Or somebody told you launch with at least 8 episodes. And I've seen people being advised to launch with 20 episodes. So there's a never-ending stream of advice out there. So you eventually launch it. A couple of weeks go by and there are mostly crickets. You've been spamming your friends and family and anybody who will click on a link. You've been posting it on your social media, but you get maybe 20, 30, 50 downloads. And you're like, how do I get listeners? You see the problem here? You started with, how do I find an audience for my main thing, which is your product or service or readers for your book or whatever it is. Now you went on this other path, and now you're trying to get listeners for your podcast instead of building your audience for your main thing. So your main thing is no longer the main thing. So next, somebody will tell you, hey, post your podcast link on Twitter, right? And you post it a few times, you get a few clicks, and then you're like, this is not working because I only have like 45 Twitter followers. So how do I grow my Twitter followers? So then somebody tells you, hey, post it several times a day. And then you use tools like Buffer and Edgar and SocialBee. And then you try to follow all the right people. And then you engage in conversations with them. Make sure you include images. And now you're like, okay, what's the best way to create images for social media? Oh, should I use Canva? Okay. And then maybe I need better images. I need to modify them and add my name and logo and stuff. What should I do next? You know what? Somebody told me I should get Photoshop. I should get really good at this. So now I'm going to learn Photoshop. Oh, wait, Photoshop, I just can't buy it outright. So I need a Creative Cloud subscription. Oh, okay. So let me do that. Oh, what is this? Adobe Audition? That seems like an awesome tool. Maybe I should use that to edit my podcast. So maybe I should use Adobe Audition instead of Audacity. This seems to offer more features, ability to control the audio, noise reduction, and adaptive leveler, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So let me learn Audition. So where do I find Audition? Maybe I should get a online course for that. Oh, never mind. You know what? I'll just go back to Photoshop for now. And you know what? I'll just start doing follow exchanges to grow my audience on Twitter. I follow one person, they follow me back. I'll join all these Twitter groups and social media groups where everybody follows each other. That should really work, right? Well, I guess that won't work. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go on Fiverr and I'm going to buy some followers. Oh, guess what? I still don't have any engagement. So what do I do next? So guess what? You went through this whole process. I'm going to go all the way back. How to build an audience. And you really haven't made any progress because you went in the wrong direction. So building an audience, if it involves starting a podcast, then you're more worried about first building an audience for your podcast. And then they have to listen to it. They have to become followers. They have to become fans. They have to subscribe to your show. And only a small chunk of those people will buy your products and services. It's basic math problem, right? Everything follows the law of diminishing returns. So now, after maybe 1 or 2 years, you realize that podcasting is not all that great at building an audience quickly, and you're still no better off than the day you started when it comes to selling your product or service or whatever it is that you're trying to build an audience for. So maybe we'll put podcasting on the back burner. So another person says, hey, you know what? Start a YouTube channel. And you're like, you know what? That's not a bad idea. I watch so much YouTube every day. These guys are getting so many views. They must be making tons of money. So let me do that. So next thing is, okay, how do I shoot the video? Should I use my phone? Should I buy a special camera? Maybe you go off into the what is a good digital camera world, and what is the kind of lighting, and what is the kind of video editing I need? Should I buy Camtasia Studio or some other Adobe tool? Oh, you know what? I have Creative Cloud, so maybe I should learn some Adobe software for the movie editing, right? So next you're like, oh, okay, next, what kind of microphone should I use? Should I use a boom mic? Should I use a lapel mic? And what kind of tripod should I use? What kind of lighting should I use? And then you start seeing that people are not staying long enough to watch your videos. So you're like, how do I get viewers to watch longer? What are YouTube cards? Then you realize that thumbnail is important. Now you start figuring out that you need to figure out your thumbnail game. Then somebody else tells you you need to do keyword research and use that in your titles and descriptions. And then somebody tells you you need a TubeBuddy subscription. Next thing you know, you're buying a YouTube marketing course. Then suddenly you realize after 1 year, wait, what? You can't monetize your channel until 4,000 watch hours in the previous 12 months and you need 1,000 subscribers? Oh, wow. So I guess YouTube monetization doesn't work so well. So how do I monetize? And how to get more views in the first 24 to 48 hours? So somebody tells you, you know what? As soon as you publish, promote the link on Twitter and Facebook. And then you're like, how to get more followers on Twitter and Facebook? And then you're back to square one. And even if somebody says you should build a list, I'm going to talk about that in a second. So that is another rabbit hole that you could go down. And finally, you're at what next? I'm still no closer to my original goal. So you go all the way back to where you started. And you're like, this is not working. How to build an audience. So next thing is somebody tells you, you know what? Whether it's your YouTube channel or Twitter or Instagram or your podcast, you should post on Facebook. And that's how you can get a lot of people to visit your podcast or YouTube channel or your Amazon Kindle book page. And you're like, okay, so I need to start posting links to my podcast or YouTube channel, and then you find out nobody's clicking on them because Facebook buried your post because you had a link in it. Guess what? Facebook does not want you to lead people away from their platform, because the longer people stay on their platform, the more ads they get to show them. So Facebook will pretty much bury your posts that have a link in them. So what's the point of telling people about your podcast if you can't link to it, or your website if you can't even mention the domain name .com in it, because that it'll turn into a link and then nobody will see it. So at the end of the day, even if you do that, you're just basically spamming your friends and your family. And the more links you post to your website, the less friends you will reach on Facebook. So next thing somebody tells you, you know what, you should start a Facebook group, because then it doesn't matter, because anything you post will be at the top of the group and everybody will see it. And then you can build your own awesome community, right? So then you join other groups because now you want to tell them to join yours, because how else are you going to get people in your community, right? Immediately your posts get deleted or you get kicked out for spam, and then you start posting on your own Facebook profile about your new group. And that doesn't work. Then somebody tells you, you know what, you should get a Facebook page and you need to buy likes and followers. So that means you need to pay Facebook, because nobody is going to just go randomly to a Facebook page and like it, right? So you need to tell people you need to pay for likes. Then you start figuring out Facebook advertising. So how do I advertise? Should I just boost a post, or should I use their more complicated advertising platform? And then you're like, okay, so what is the best way to learn Facebook ads? Should I buy a course? Maybe I should join some kind of a community where they're teaching this stuff. Maybe I'll hire an agency, right? And you see, this is what happens. You're like still stuck at what next? So you go back all the way again. You're back at square one. How to build an audience. Now, obviously, every time you're doing all these things, you do make progress. I'm not saying square one means you are back to knowing nothing and doing nothing. You're still building assets and you're still creating content, but that is like constantly flapping your arms in the water and you're staying in the same place without moving forward. So is that really swimming? Technically, you are flapping your arms and legs and you're floating. That doesn't mean you're getting much exercise. You're not swimming. So it's one thing to stay busy and be creating content, and it's another thing to actually grow your audience. Imagine you are Hugh Jackman, or your favorite female celebrity who has a new movie coming out. So what are some of the things you would do at his level of celebrity? You probably go as a guest on other people's shows. That's the first thing you do. A lot of shows, TV shows, podcasts, Comic-Con, and you try to reach OPA, other people's audiences. So here's what Hugh Jackman will not do when trying to promote a new movie. He is not going to sit and think, let me see. I have to promote my new movie and I need an audience to be able to promote it to. So maybe I should start my own TV show, start my own podcast, my own YouTube channel. Maybe I should start building an email list. So yeah, that's the same level of irrelevant advice that you'll get sometimes online if you just ask how to promote your stuff. Start a podcast, start a YouTube channel, start a blog. Buy paid ads on Facebook. Sure, they are all possible ideas that are obviously included in my course and I talk about them a lot, but there are levels and tiers to doing this. There is a progression to doing this. There are short-term and mid-term and long-term things. Hey, welcome to 1001 True Fans. How to build an audience starting from zero. 0 fans, 0 followers, 0 list, and 0 customers. This is not about getting millions of fans or millions of customers. It's not even about getting hundreds of thousands of fans or followers or buyers. It is about 1,000 true fans. When my wife, Veena Prashant, who's also the co-founder and co-developer of DigitalAccessPass.com and creator of SmartPayCard.com, when we both decided to quit our lucrative full-time jobs in New York in 2009 and move to San Diego in 2010, we probably had between 500 to 700 customers at the time. And they're not even paying monthly, just one-time buyers. So yes, we took a huge risk, but just know that even just hundreds of customers helped us build an amazing life as full-time entrepreneurs working from home, having the freedom to do what we want, when we want, being there when our kids got back from school, which they didn't always necessarily love, and being able to do everything on our timeline. And this course is going to break it down in the simplest and most impactful way possible and show you how it can be done. And it also shows you how I did it myself. I'm a huge fan of Kevin Kelly's 1000 True Fans concept. And I'll also explain why I added the one at the end of 1000 True Fans and made it 1001. But first, here's a quote from his article. To be a successful creator, you don't need millions. You don't need millions of dollars or millions of customers, millions of clients, or millions of fans. What a fantastic concept. You don't need millions of anything. Find your 1000 true fans, sell them products and services worth, say, $100 a year, and you make 100K. And I'm actually living proof that this concept works. Back when we launched Digital Access Pass in 2008, our list was actually 1,300 people in total, of which probably less than 200 people were actually active. So with that small list of less than 200 people, we were able to get about 5 sales in the first weekend of the launch. We reached about 100 buyers in total in the first year. Veena and I quit really lucrative, high-paying jobs, and DAP was way short of 1,000 users at the time. We were able to afford a really nice living with way fewer than 1,000 paying customers, which is why I continue to harp on this one point. You don't need millions of customers, millions of downloads, millions of email subscribers. You can do really, really well with just 1,000 true fans. But guess what? How are you going to get those 1,000 true fans? Kevin Kelly's article doesn't exactly tell you how to go about getting 1,000 true fans, and definitely not how you do it in today's age of social media and such limited short attention spans, an era in which everybody has a webinar, everybody has a lead magnet, everybody has an article, everybody's an expert. So how the heck do you even get 1,000 regular fans, leave alone 1,000 true fans? If you go into any Facebook group and ask them, say, how to promote your podcast or YouTube channel, you will get a lot of the same old replies. Post a link on Facebook, post a link on Twitter, post a snippet on YouTube and Instagram, and blah, blah, blah. And if you don't have an existing audience on any of those platforms, that's like yelling out the name of your podcast or website from your living room. There ain't no one there to hear what you're saying. So somebody who is super into podcasting will tell you you should also start a podcast if you want leads. Or somebody who's a YouTube creator will tell you that you too need to start a YouTube channel or a blog. Now, these are great things for the long term, and they're all in my spreadsheet and in my mind map, and I have mapped out things for you to do when it comes to these things. But for the short term, starting a podcast or YouTube channel for building an audience is not a good idea, because that is the equivalent of planting a tree in your backyard. And if you want food in 3 months or 6 months or a year from now, that's great. But what if you need to put food on the table today and tomorrow and next week, next month? So a lot of advice you will get in many online communities and from many quote unquote gurus is usually very blah or downright bad, or just so skewed based on the one channel they may have found success in based on something they have been doing for a long time. So what worked for them will probably not work for you, which is why you need to take a very, very specific set of action steps in order to build your audience. You just can't spray and pray, especially when you're spraying into an empty hall. Back in 2001, when I was still working on mywebmasterinAbox.com, my password for one of the servers at the time, I made it as 1,000 copies. I wanted to be able to sell 1,000 copies of my PHP scripts. I knew that if I could sell 1,000 copies, which was being sold for $97 at the time, I knew that's equivalent to $97,000. But I also knew that if I could sell 1,000 copies, that meant 1,000 customers, which means I could create more products and scripts and software for them, and I knew I could grow my business from there. So whether you're looking to grow your audience from scratch, or you already have a small audience right now that you would like to grow further, I believe my course can help you. And I have a 30-day, no questions asked money-back guarantee. So you have absolutely nothing to lose and only a big audience to gain. Hope to see you on the other side. Cheers.